Hello, thanks so much for coming in for all those who are here. So a quick little introduction about me. My name is Charisse Bennett. I actually have a bachelor's in engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. Um, and I was an oil field engineer for several years after that. I was on rigs. I was all over the US, offshore, onshore, Alaska, Louisiana, you name it. I was everywhere. And then afterwards, I had discerned 2 years in a religious community with the Carmelites. And after I discerned out, I actually worked at my parish. I worked with families and kids in sacraments. I taught infant baptism, Eucharist, confirmation, RCIA, you name it, anything sacraments related, I was there. And that was where I realized I needed more help in psychology. Having a background in engineering helped me to be analytical, helped me to be logical, helped me to approach things with a problem solving mindset. But something that I realized along the way was one, I needed more soft people skills. I need to understand my families and the kids that I work with, as well as um, helping create that more warm environment for them. Sometimes I come off fairly cold, and that's something I kind of realized in my studies that in order to help other people flourish, I need to learn to flourish myself. So I learned a lot about myself during this program, and it really just taught me to help my family be in a better position to flourish themselves. So again, if you have just arrived, please go ahead and state in the chat, where do you live? What is your current occupation? And why psychology? This will help me gauge the webinar a little bit better, so I can help answer your questions as well. Feel free to put anything in the Q&A down below in the Zoom. Okay. Miss Susie, and I want to introduce Miss Suzi Ellington. Again, she was in
Hello.
my graduating class. Miss Susie, if you'd like to give
Mhm.
a little introduction about yourself.
I'd love to. And wow, I especially like learning about your story because I learned a few new things about you. I don't know how you managed to accomplish all of that in your young life so far, but wow, that's incredible. What a
Mm-hmm.
journey. Um, where do I start? Well, I'm Suzi Ellington. I live in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and I have three grown children, a husband of 32 years, a new business. I am a Catholic life coach and a recent alum of DMU. But where this all began is when I was an undergrad, I was in finance and I had an inkling that I love learning about people and what makes people tick. And I just had such an interest there. So I took a minor in psychology, where that is really where my true passion was. I just didn't realize it until after college. And I was in a career, had three children, quit my job. And that at that point, I was so happy and thrilled because it's intentional and purposeful, but had this nagging regret that I never had studied psychology, and my excuses piled on top of the other why it wasn't
Mm.
even a possibility. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't. And flash forward many years later, I was at Rosary and it struck me. I really wanted to be a Catholic counselor, but I told myself it was too late. I was 51 years old. I'd been out of college 30 years. But I thought, you know what? Let's just be curious. And before I knew it, I was talking to Greg, who was like, Charisse. And all of my excuses started to fall away, except for not believing in myself enough to do it. And I just decided to be humble and go for it. And it was really the best decision that I've made. And I just want to add one more thing. On that journey, I had discovered I had a charism for encouragement, but in my mind, I created a negative impression of that. In other words, that was such a gift that was given to me, but I told myself this was my excuse for not doing things myself. This is me lifting everyone else up around me without having the courage to do what I needed to do, which was
Mm-hmm.
not from God. And then I discovered later through my education that, in fact, this was my charism. And DMU helped me put that to better use. In the meantime, before coming to Divine Mercy University, I have led many small groups for the last 15 years in many different capacities. So my whole journey kind of led me to this education.
Perfect. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Susie.
Mhm.
And I haven't actually finished the rest of my story because I realized I didn't talk about my journey to DMU. So, funny enough, I actually learned about Divine Mercy University when I was a senior in college. So before I even graduated with my bachelor's, I heard about Divine Mercy, and I was like, and I told myself I should have done psychology. I should have done it. I wanted something more people related. I wanted to help people in some form of way. Um, and then Divine Mercy just kept coming back every couple years when I was a oilfield engineer, even after I left religious life, I Divine Mercy emailed me. So back in God was slowly changing my heart towards really opening up um, myself to a master's because I promised myself after engineering that I was never going to do graduate school. I was like, I'm done with school. I can't do school anymore. But then when you find something that you really love and enjoy learning, it was not a chore. It was actually a beautiful time to learn not just about God, but also about myself and how I can help other people in a way that is not necessarily in a clinical setting. But thank you so much, Marissa and Carmen, for speaking up in the chat. And thank you so much, Susie, for your
Mhm.
intro. We will go ahead and get started. Okay. So this is Divine Mercy and Masters in Psychology, which is 100% online and no GRE required. So I know that maybe some of you might be interested in a more clinical graduate program. Master's in Psychology is non-clinical. Okay, while we do have a master's in counseling, which is to help you lead to licensure as a LPC, licensed professional counselor. The master's in psychology is really geared for those who want to imbue more of psychological sciences in their work, or maybe move into a more human services related career. Okay. I love this program so much. I actually came back to work for Divine Mercy.
So, Charisse, I think it's important I add something. I
Yes.
intended to go into counseling, right?
No, right.
But in that discussion and discernment process, I discovered I really wanted to get my master's of science instead because I was
Yes.
more interested in growth and helping as a helper. So I don't want to lead anyone under the impression that this is the path to get your counseling degree.
Right.
And yeah, so
Right.
sorry about that if I misled
Oh,
anyone to that, but
no
that's where I
problem.
began my journey.
Yes. So if you are still interested, if you're interested in more of a clinical work, we have our master's in counseling. You can still email me, and that'll be a different discussion from the master's in
Mhm.
psychology. Okay. So a little bit of a background with Divine Mercy. We are a Catholic graduate university comprised of two schools, the Institute for the Psychological Sciences and the School of Counseling. We were founded in 1999, which means in December of this year, we have been around for 25 years. 25 years. And in 2014, that was when they launched the online Masters of Science in Psychology, which was this program that we will talk about today. In 2015, they added the School of Counseling. So with two schools, we upgraded to university status. Okay, Divine Mercy is accredited by SACS-COC, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. The same association from the Department of Education that accredits University of Texas, Auburn, University of Georgia. So basically, it's the southern side of the U.S., and we can award master's and doctorate degrees. What really makes our what really makes our program very unique? Number one, 100% online classes on your schedule. Susie, just because I'm curious, from pandemic, a lot of people got more used to online classes. What was your experience with the online program?
Oh, okay, great. Well, I pretty tech, I wouldn't say savvy, but I use Zoom for Rosary. In my volunteer work, I use the computer a lot, so that didn't intimidate me, but it's a case of I nevers. And if you find me on Suzi Ellington on Facebook, I tell this story about it. But one of them was my daughter is a high school English teacher, and she was on Canvas working with rubrics. And I looked at her, this is well before DMU, and I said, wow, I'd never do that. I can't even imagine navigating through Canvas, working at being graded by rubric. Thank goodness I didn't have that when I was growing up. Well, lo and behold, I ended up loving rubrics and used Canvas and navigating that really well. Did you have a specific question for me about that?
Oh no,
Or just
sometimes,
about the online experience?
right. Usually with the online experience, I tend to say that sometimes a lot of new students or prospective students feel that it is an isolating thing to do
No,
classes online. What do you think, Susie?
I, well, originally that was one of the reasons why I thought, oh, maybe I can do this because in the time that I'd be traveling, I can study and read. And I did think it would be isolating and I thought it would be kind of lesser than education. And it is not true at
Mm,
all. I have made friends with people from around the world
yes.
and the connections that you make are real and really supportive. Like we supported each other. We had a group of people that all throughout our whole education, whether we were in each other's classes or not, support
Hmm.
each other and very fulfilling and satisfying for sure. And easy
Amazing.
to navigate and figure out. If I can figure it out 30 years out of undergrad, um, certainly anybody can. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love to note too that Susie and I were started in the same cohort, but we still have our group chat from when we were students. So we
Yeah.
still talk about our lives on that group chat. We still connect. So, and it's beautiful again that we have international students as well because it is 100% online. We have that diversity in our program. Okay. Thank you so much, Susie.
Mm-hmm.
Our program is also built on the integrative approach to psychology. We have this wonderful textbook called The Catholic Christian Meta Model of the Person, the CCMMP. You can even find it on Amazon and go ahead. And chapter one is available on our website as well. And it's an amazing read. I was super scared of it at first because it was like this thick, but it was so accessible. I really enjoyed it. Now, secular psychology programs tend to focus more on what the symptoms are. This is what happened. This is what you. These are the symptoms. This is your disease. This is your treatment plan. But we don't really approach psychology in that way. We want the more holistic approach. So in this textbook, we see each person theologically, philosophically, and psychologically. We have we were born and created in the image and likeness of God, but we have rational thought and emotions. But then how does that play into living virtuous lives? How does that play into flourishing? All of that
Mm-hmm.
you learn in this master's program. So that way you can see the whole person, which is what DMU is always trying to teach. The Catholic Christian meta model of the person is the DNA thread that runs through every class, even the statistics course, which I will expound a lot more later. Okay. But our program allows for a 16-month versus a 26-month completion option, meaning that you can finish the whole program in 16 months, which is two classes at a time, or 26 months, which is just one class at a time. Perfect for our full-time workers or our stay-at-home moms or parents that need that can only maybe give about 10 to 20 hours of work every week. We have individualized feedback from faculty every week. The professor emailed you with feedback from your paperwork, reaching out to you how you were doing. I thought that was a very beautiful way to keep in contact with all your professors. Because I mean, when I was an undergrad, most of my feedback from my professors were grades, and then that was it. But no, you get to really learn the faculty
Mm-hmm.
members in this program very well. Small student to faculty ratio. We also adapt to all five learning modalities. There's books, video, there's audio books as well. There's time to meet with your professors and actually do office hours. It's actually really great in that way, as well as experience and supportive faculty. Okay. So there are many benefits to the Master's in Psychology program. Remember again that this is a non-licensure program. Okay, but psychology is applicable to all life, to all occupations, to wherever you are, because psychology allows you to gain a deeper understanding of yourself, right? Not just about yourself as well, but also how to help others. And this is why we term flourishing. Very important. This is a hot DMU term. We love flourishing. Because if you can flourish yourself, you can help others flourish as well. Do you love the term flourishing, Susie? How many times do you think
I
we've
named
read
my
it?
company after it, the Flourishing Zone.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is the flourishing zone?
Oh, well, first of all, I just want to add that professionally, this has helped me, but more so personally, for my understanding of the beauty of the Catholic Church and the understanding of the human person with dignity, and to be able to express that to other people without, because people will ask me what I'm doing, what is my school about, and I can evangelize in a way that's not threatening because I'm just telling them about my education. I'm telling them about what vocation means, and as they hear my voice, they hear how excited I am because I'm learning this more fully and understanding it more fully. And you can't lie about how moved you are, about how beautiful it is. And you want to share it with others. So there's that part of it. I just had a conversation with my daughter, who's amazing, but she's had this little tendency of kind of picking on her fiance a little bit, just in joking. And I, through my education, was able to have this most beautiful conversation with her in a non-threatening way of just the beauty of communication and how she's developing her faith so wonderfully. But now is a chance for her to develop her communication skills so that when she's parenting, she can parent better than I did, and and she's like, "Oh, you're a great parent." But I said, "I've learned so much from, and you're growing in these ways too." So you're able to, if you have young children, it would be a lot. I'm not, for me, it was, but maybe if you're younger, it won't be as much. But even if it's not now, if it's another time, it helps you to really understand how to communicate better and more optimistically and hopefully than just getting stuff done in that moment. You have a more intentional, broader vision of your child's development and your vocation as a mom or as a business person. And if you gave me the throne, I would just keep talking for 5 hours. So I better let you lead it. But I like it. There's just so much you can get out of this other than, yes, many careers you could do, training,
Oh, yes,
and different
absolutely.
things in training that I've interviewed for that I actually turned down to do my business. But there's a lot, but more in human relationships and understanding how
Absolutely.
relationships are so essential to growth and purpose. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So if you're able to understand yourself, you can help other people flourish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, one of the greater benefits, as I mentioned before, I used to be an engineer and I thought analytically, I thought logically, but I needed the soft skills. There are classes where they help you develop excellence in communication. They taught you
Mm-hmm.
um, not just like what is the difference between sympathy and empathy? How can I tend to the person? What is my nonverbal communication like in front of other
Mm-hmm.
people? You're constantly reflecting on yourself. And it was like a beautiful moment to really understand who you are, what you're able to give, your gifts that you can offer to other people and the communities around you. So it was amazing. Um, I also ran sacrament programs at my parish. So with my master's, I was able to evaluate the programs a little bit better, create surveys, to be able to understand like what people are really looking for and maybe improve my programs a lot more. So a lot of benefits to this
Yeah.
master's in
Can I add
psychology
one more
program.
thing?
Yeah.
I felt like I had a very strong intuition about helping people. And I had my own understanding of that. And I did a lot of I still do a lot of volunteering with people that come from brokenness. And I shifted my mindset toward from before as I'm going to help be in relationship to fix people. And my education helped me understand that my approach needed to be unbiased and from where they are and gentle and just more of a listening, reflective thing as opposed to me leading, that it's really taking people where they are. You will learn so many skills, even if you're
Oh,
amazing
yes.
with people. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Susie.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the tracks that we have in our master in psychology program. If you could take the time to write out which tracks you're interested in, I will definitely focus on those. Okay. go ahead and write which track you're interested in. We have marriage and family, human services leadership, pre-PhD, self-design, and bioethics. Okay. So I would just like to point out, Susie, when they made this presentation, when they made this presentation, look, there's Emily right here and me.
Oh,
I
that's
love it.
awesome.
I love it. Not
That's
exactly proof
great.
that I graduated, but
Yeah.
I'm in the
What are you going to
presentation.
tell them? We went to school together, but I wasn't in that picture. I took
No,
a little break and
you took a
graduated.
little break.
Yeah, I graduated that fall and walked to the next
Yes.
May, but
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, we got bioethics, marriage and family. Okay. So you can get a master's in leadership. You can get your thesis done, bioethics, whoops, pre-PhD or self-design, applied behavioral analysis. Okay. Great. Thank you so much for answering. This really helps me a little bit. So within the MSP, we have 11 total courses, and these are the 8 core courses. Okay. The introduction course, the Catholic Christian approach to psychology, developmental psychology, where you go through each age group every week. I mean, we went from infancy all the way to elderhood, and they tell you what's happening physically, emotionally, cognitively. It was amazing. I really enjoyed this course. Psychopathology with risk and resilience, where you're learning more about the abnormal psychology, eating disorders, substance abuses, um, schizophrenia, all of those kinds of pathologies. Cognition, emotion, and motivation, which I call the brain class. How does the brain work, or what do we know of how the brain works? How emotion comes out, what motivates people, how people make decisions. We have the one philosophy course, the Catholic Christian vision of flourishing, based on vocations and virtues, because it's good to have all this psychological knowledge, but if you're not helping people flourish by living out their vocations and living out virtuous lives, we're missing something in terms of flourishing. Okay. Statistic course, as Susie said probably earlier, but one of my favorite courses. As an engineer, the math course was great. But don't worry, it's not heavily math. It's really more about, can you interpret the data rather than doing the math itself.
You can do
So
it. It's not, yes,
yeah, it's not
agree.
bad. It's okay. Social psychology with groups and diversity, how do groups act, as well as how does diversity play into groups. And then the research methodology and design, where you go over program assessment. And Susie, what was your favorite class? Or which one
Mhm.
stood out to you the most?
Well, when we started, we didn't really have the concentrations, like
Right.
they kind of transitioned. So I kind of got to dabble in all of them. And quite honestly, I just love them all and how they all kind of fit together for the big picture. But I really did like the cognition, emotion, and motivation class. But I think what drove me the most was just the whole flourishing and the history of psychology and the progression of psychology is very amazing. So, no matter what, take a look at that because it's very fascinating how psychology has evolved, even in the secular world of positive psychology, is very aligned, even if they don't use the same language, with Catholic Christian vision of the person. And as psychology has moved along these decades, it keeps moving more and more to the understanding that we're other centered. So
We
that's
are.
pretty cool. And so all these classes, everything coming together with faith and philosophy intermixed is just, it's such a unique time to get a psychology education. And in a way, I'm grateful that I never got to pursue that when I was younger because I would have never experienced this education. I think it is the top psychology education you could ever have if you're especially if you're a Catholic or a Christian, because to see the whole person from this perspective is you have to experience, I guess, to understand what I'm talking about, but it
Yes.
is incredible. So
Yes.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. And then we're going to go over the track. Okay. So as I mentioned before, we have 11 total courses. 8 of those are core courses, which everyone takes. Then you have 3 electives to take. Okay. Marriage and family is really to help students Encourage couples and families towards flourishing in a variety of settings, such as marriage prep, enrichment relationship education programs, training mental couples. And these are the 3 electives for that. The Catholic Christian Marriage and Human Sexuality, which is another philosophy course. And then the 2 psychology courses on interventions as well as systems theory. Which one did you took one of these courses,
Yeah,
right,
did you
Suzi?
take that? Because
I did not.
you also go through if they still do this, they go through
I think
focus
they do.
training, and I'm focus certified. So
Can
that
you
you
explain what
leave with
focus is?
this. Yeah, so focus is your facilitator for pre-marriage or marriage. It's not counseling, but you facilitate that discussion between couples before they get married, or there's also a marriage retreat one. I don't personally do that right now, but I could pursue that if I wanted to. I have that accreditation through the school, and the school paid for it. Well,
Yeah.
through our tuition.
Yes, our
So
tuition.
that's part of that
Yes,
education, if it still is, Charisse, I hope,
it is.
because that was just this year. Okay.
Yes, it is. So you can become a marriage prep facilitator. You can become a director of family life in your parish, or even help out with marriage and family office. All of this is really, all of these classes are aimed to help you understand how marriage and family work
So
and how
I'll
you can help them
also,
towards flourishing.
yeah, so I'll also offer this too, if I know there's someone interested in possibly pursuing this. So also in this class, you do design your own retreat, which is not
Ooh.
difficult, but that's pretty much how the class moves. You go through preparing this retreat, and you also get your focus certification as part of it. So, yeah.
Focus is FOCCUS. It's one of the marriage prep programs out there. Okay, awesome. So this is the human services concentration. This includes counseling courses. And I took 2 of these courses. It's really intended for those who are working with, you know, in a non-clinical setting, but probably in a clinical setting, but not actually as a person working in clinical occupation. So the electives for this one are relationship and intervention skills theory and application. You actually had to talk to a lot of people about, like, you had to record yourself one-on-one interacting, and you got to really see yourself and how you interacted with. This was like one of our earlier courses, Suzi. I don't know if you remember, but it was I learned a lot from this course.
So did I. Yeah, it's good.
Yes, it was really good. Personality, individual differences, and intelligence. A lot of students love this course. Dr. Cusimano teaches it, and she's amazing. You go through a lot of personality theories and how personality develops, as well as group counseling and group work. I actually did this course, and I would say it was one of my hardest courses. You had to work in a group, you had to record yourself as well as do some self-reflection, practice and improve every week on counseling. It was so different, but it was so good. You get to really learn a lot about yourself during these courses. So with this particular concentration, you can do case management if you're an administrator or like a grief and loss counselor, for example. There's a lot of human services professionals that could really benefit with this track. The leadership concentration is really for those who want to lead people, programs, and organizations. A leadership this is really more for those who are in leadership or want to help others in their leadership. Okay, so these are the 3 electives: transformational leadership, leading people, programs, organizations, as well as applied leadership skills. So we're hoping to work towards a human resources certification with this concentration, as well as if you're maybe a career coach or an executive. We actually surprisingly have executives and VPs in our programs as well. They kind of give a different kind of perspective and on leading people. I think I took leading people, programs, and organizations, or actually transform one of them. I took one of them, and it taught me what kind of leader I am and how I can create other leaders as well. Um, I think that was with Dr. Derby. Oh, okay. Sorry, one more second. The self-design concentration is if you want to choose the elective that you want to take. Okay. So you can choose one from marriage and family, one from human services, or one from um, the the leadership track. So the first 3 tracks I mentioned, you can choose an elective from each, or maybe choose the 3 that really works best for you. Okay. So I think I did relationship intervention skills. Oh, transformational leadership as well as group counseling. So this is really good for those who are in ministry because maybe it's more applicable to the ministry that you're doing. If you're working for the, federal government, you can really, again, work towards towards the classes that you would like to take, something that's more related to your profession. Okay.
Did you see Lashana's chat here? She has an MS
Oh,
in
I'm so sorry.
psychology. Oh, I'm just wondering if you saw it because I'm fascinated about her interest. And I was wondering myself, once you already have your master's and you want
Mhm.
additional education, what does that look like?
Okay,
And
that's
she said,
perfect. That's a great question. So the tracks are actually designed so you can actually just apply and choose. If you already have your master's in psychology, you can already just you can choose. You can do courses for credit. Choose the courses that you would like to take. Maybe take the ones that again you're more interested in the addiction field. So maybe the more human services related courses work best for you. For those who are already graduated with our master's in psychology at Divine Mercy, you can actually already take tracks on your own. Okay. For example, I graduated over a year ago, but I will be going back to do the pre-PhD track, which I will explain here shortly. So tracks are meant to really add on to your master's in psychology. Okay. Hopefully, we don't have an addiction certification yet, but we are actually working towards gaining an addictions track ourselves. So hopefully we will get that fairly soon. For those who are interested in research, this is the one for you, pre-PhD concentration. So our master's in psychology does not necessarily end with a thesis. Everyone gets to do a capstone. Fairly briefly, a capstone project is something that you start from your first class and you develop it all the way through your program. And it's essentially you're identifying a need in your community or in the work that you're doing, and you're creating a solution. You are researching solutions for that problem as well as presenting it, not as a defense, but presenting it at the end of your program. But if you're in a pre PhD concentration, it actually culminates in a thesis. Instead of the 3 electives, 2 of those are taken up with thesis writing, and then you also get 1 free elective to take. Okay, for those who want to do the pre-PhD track, it's really for those who either want to move up into the PhD world or maybe want to teach psychology, perhaps in a community college or in high school. I know someone that actually became an adjunct professor at her community college right local to her, and she now teaches some counseling courses. So this is really great, again, for those who want to move up into the PhD field. Really, again, more research based. Okay. We now have also a bioethics concentration. Okay. As I mentioned before, you do have those 3 electives. Those 3 electives are actually taken as 4 modules. Very confusing, but it's through the National Catholic Bioethics Center, NCBC, where you take 4 modules. This is really best for those who are encountering a lot of ethical issues, whether in their healthcare field, because the modules are really built for those, right? So ethical challenges at the beginning of life, at the end of life, vaccines and research. These are amazing modules, actually. From the people I've heard talk about it, it opens up your eyes about the medical field and how the Catholic teaching actually fits in that world. Okay. Are there any questions about, if there are any questions about tracks at this point, go ahead and just write it out. I will be going back and forth and answering your questions. Okay. So the learning experience, I know Susie mentioned it a little bit earlier with Canvas, are some people may know Blackboard or other learning management systems, but we use Canvas. And you have continuous access to this platform. You can the ability to work anywhere. So I don't know, Susie, if you remember, but one time I was on a cruise and I actually brought work with me. I was able to access Canvas on my phone and I was able to turn in work. It was crazy, but you do get continuous access to this platform.
yeah, I don't count on doing your degree on your phone though. It's not going
Yeah,
to
don't
work
do
out
your
very
whole degree
well.
on your phone. But if you're traveling, you still get the
No, right,
ability, if you have
exactly.
internet. right? If you have
Oh, it
internet,
is
you can,
wonderful. Mm-hmm.
yes. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you have 5 different learning modalities: videos, books. You have the professor sometimes teaching in an office hour. There are audiobooks, so there are different ways to learn. And again, that weekly individualized feedback from professors. Did you find that Canvas was fairly accessible, Susie?
Yes, it was great. I also felt like the professors were very ready to answer any questions.
Oh, absolutely.
I rarely had to wait more than half a day, and sometimes it was just hours to ask a question, and very, very helpful and accessible.
Yes,
Hmm.
amazing. And our professors um, were all great. So
That
these
makes
are
me smile when I see their faces.
me too. They're so nice. This is the core faculty at Divine Mercy. I actually had a course with every professor on this
Me too.
on this slide, and they were all amazing. I had a great time, each one of them. When you start with the master's in psychology, you actually get assigned an academic advisor, and mine was Dr. Williamson, Dr. Angela, and we talked a lot about how about improving my capstone, how I felt about the courses so far, if I had any questions or concerns. I mean, I was very surprised, again, as an online course, how accessible the professors were.
Hmm.
Who was your academic advisor, Susie?
Dr. Anna Pecoraro, and she helped me because I volunteer in the city and I had very big ideas of one thing, and it had to do with, it was just very complex. And then another with teenagers. And she didn't discourage me, but she said, you need to probably try to keep this simple because you're going to have to flesh out and research of the aspects of this. So
Mm-hmm.
she was very helpful, and then she also helped me throughout. She's also an encouragement to help me find spiritual direction. She wasn't my spiritual director, but she helped me understand how to look for spiritual directors and also suggested people she knew in my area. So she was just very kind and helpful and supportive throughout my whole education there.
Yes, absolutely. And Dr. Julia Clousley is the program director, and you can email her about anything, and she will always respond back to you. And about again, I was very surprised by how accessible these professors
Yes.
were to us. I had all of them were really great. I had great experiences with Dr. Gross, who was our philosophy professor, and Dr. Cusimano. She was the only extroverted professor in a sea of introverted students. So she just made the course so much more fun. Um, so our professors are very experienced. Their biographies, I think, are on our website, and they all have experience and done research on a variety of topics. So let's talk about the acceptance requirements for the MSP program. Must have a bachelor's degree. Okay, you need to have the official transcript sent over to Divine Mercy. Has to be recognized by the Department of Education or must be an internationally recognized institution. Applicants must have at least a 2.5 GPA to be admitted. Though we did say no GRE is required, if you have less than 2.5, a GRE score might help your application. 2 letters of recommendation um, for either an academic or professional source. Your resume, including your current employment or any significant volunteer history. A personal statement indicating how your goals align with the goals of the program. If your bachelor's degree was from international, since I'm outside of the U.S. or outside of a English-speaking country, then a TOEFL or IELTS score might be required with your application. And there's also a mandatory virtual orientation prior to starting the first course. So if I know the big question right here is always when the rubber meets the road, can I afford grad school? Okay, because we are accredited, we do participate in federal aid. You can gain student loans as a graduate student. And just so you know, graduate level student loans work differently from undergrad student loans. Okay, so graduate student loans are capped at a certain amount every year, but our tuition actually fits under that maximum that the government's able to give you for a graduate loan. You can ask your employer for any tuition reimbursement. We are actually approved for veteran funding through the GI Bill. Yet we are Yellow Ribbon School, etc. All of these scholarships and grants, which are located on our website. We have our merit scholarship. If you do decide to do, like, let's say, a full-time enrollment, you can apply to our merit scholarship, which is up to 50% and a 25% tuition discount. Alternative financing, which are, for example, private funds, parish and diocesan support. I've actually had students ask their parish or their priest or their local church for support, and they were able to give them some kind of funding. We actually match funds with many nonprofits. So if you find a nonprofit in your area that's able to match funds, please connect them with us, and we might be able to match funds with them as well. Tax plan. So this I thought was very important. So I was a single person doing a master's in psychology. I actually did a third student loan, a third out of pocket, and a third through scholarships. So the part that was out of pocket, through Divine Mercy University, you can set up cash plans. You can set up monthly payment plans, interest free through the school, and that's something that the school will work with you to do monthly payment plans. And that really was really helpful because then it didn't hit the wallet quite as hard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super helpful. I was able to sacrifice a little bit to save up because even a few hundred or a few $100s a month was able to fund my graduate work. So it's definitely absolutely doable to afford grad school. So these are the direct costs for the program. From 2024 and 2025, the tuition is $876 per credit. As I mentioned before, 11 courses. Each course is 3 credit hours, comes down to 33 credit hours. With a tech fee and a residency fee, the residency I will talk about in a second. It all comes down to $29,708. But that's of course an estimate. A lot. The fees I feel like that aren't associated with this maybe are application fees and graduation fees. Other than that, this is a fairly good estimate of what the whole program costs. Remember, it's not all upfront either. We have scholarships and grants that we usually try to find a grant for every student, and you can do monthly payment plans as well. I apologize. There's a Q&A question here. How long are the courses? Are they self-paced? Okay. Sorry, I didn't answer that earlier. So each course is 8 weeks. We have 8-week terms at DMU, and we have 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, and 1 in the summertime. So if you only did 1 course per year, you have 5 courses per year. Okay. A lot of it is self-paced, but there are weekly due dates. Outside the weekly due dates, you can really learn on your own time. And especially for those who, let's say, are going on vacation for a certain amount of time, or need to move a due date here and there, you can always talk to the professors, and they are generally fairly lenient if you tell them early. Okay. There was an anonymous attendee who said, I have a master's of science in nursing. I've always been interested to do a field of psychology. Do I need a master's of science in psychology to obtain a PhD in psychology? Yes, either you do need a master's in psychology, or the PhD program you apply to already has a master's built in it. So either way, you need to go through master's and then PhD. Just go ahead and look for PhD programs. We do have one here at DMU, but it is in person. So whether or not you're going to do, let's say, as I mentioned before, we have terms. If you're going to do 1 class at a time, that's called part-time enrollment. That will take you 26 months to complete, or you take 2 classes per term, and you will finish in 16 months. Okay, so these are the 2 completion options I mentioned earlier. If you finish in 16 months, there is a slight discount on 4 courses. So the total tuition is estimated around $27,000 versus the 26 months, which is $29,000. So Suzi, what was your main takeaway from the program? What was the best thing you learned?
Oh my goodness.
I know that's
It's
a
so
loaded
much.
question.
I mean, I think I understand myself better. We had this flourishing development plans that we needed to do every term. I think that helped me grow personally and understand myself better. But just career wise, it really, once you go through it and you understand yourself better and you're excited to head in this direction. So there's something
Mhm.
drawing you here. It will come to you throughout this education. It's so comprehensive that something will speak to you. For instance, Charisse and I had the same, pretty much same class experience, but we were
Right.
led completely different directions. And yeah, I would say my favorite experience was understanding psychology, understanding vocations, and how just just how flourishing happens, and that it happens when we are called to holiness, but that we don't do that alone, that we're all
Right.
interconnected and our vocations get us there. And I could, like I said, there's so much richness to this education that it's hard to encapsulate, but it has really lit me on fire to help other people. And originally, when I came in, I wanted to help people from brokenness to get to a place of being okay in this world. And then I realized that's not my calling, that's someone else's in counseling, which is now why I'm a coach, because I take people that maybe won't pursue counseling, that might be doing just fine, might not have to revisit the past, but need help with the future. Maybe they're stuck, they don't understand spiritual direction, even though I'm not a spiritual director. God's always a part of everything. They might need to uncover something that they've buried. For instance, like me, that I'd buried my desire to get a psychology education, those kind
Hmm.
of things that help us flourish and help other people. So I
Absolutely.
think just better understanding and clarity of my own purposefulness and how I can use it. So
Perfect.
that's,
Yes. Thank you so
let's
much,
say.
Susie.
Mhm.
Um, Personally, for me, I mean, in terms of flourishing, sometimes people enter this program thinking, "Oh, I'm actually in a good place. You know, I don't why I want to help other people." But then
Mhm.
when when you're constantly self-reflecting and seeing how you can better yourself, there's always ways to better flourish, right?
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
just for yourself, but you can teach others how to flourish as well, which is what I love to hear about Susie and coaching. I think that's
Mhm.
amazing. I know another student that does career coaching as well, and
Mhm.
I think that's a beautiful outcome of the Master's in Psychology program. So really think about your goals. What are your goals? What do you want to gain from Master's in Psychology? Will it fit this program? Do you feel like there's enough flexibility for you to complete this program? The 16 months track is fairly rigorous. You're talking about maybe 30 hours a week. And then if you're just taking one class at a time, again, really perfect for our full-time workers or stay-at-home moms, parents. For me, it was just perfect. It was maybe another 12 to 15 hours a week of work. Um,
Yeah.
and it was just right for me as a person who was working full time. I mean, we have a lot of financial aid options. And once I do receive an application, I do connect with financial aid, and you can have a deeper conversation with them about what scholarships and grants are available for you. And really,
Mhm.
we want you to complete the program, right? It's very important
Mhm.
for us um, that you want to be here, that you want to successfully complete it, not just take a chance and say, oh, it just sounds interesting. Like, no, do you want to flourish? Do you want to help other people? This is the right program for you.
I would just add, so I know that worked for you, that you could zip along, and I do think it's very doable. I think if you have other obligations, that faster pace, you want to make sure that you are able to absorb things, that you're able to learn, because it is such a gift. This education is not about getting your MS in psychology. It's bigger than that. And for me, it took longer than Charisse, but I'm slower to
Just a couple
comprehend things.
semesters.
But I also I didn't do the minimum. I dove into, and I'm not saying Charisse did. She didn't. She's just a little bit sharper than I am. But I dove into
Yeah.
a lot and I spent a lot of time in my writing and reflecting, and that was a gift in itself too.
Hmm.
So depends on what you're, if you want this degree or if you really want to savor it and immerse yourself in it, I suggest a class at a time is nice, unless you have about 30 hours to do that.
Yes,
So.
LaShawna said, I did my MS online, working 2 jobs and being single mom. It's possible.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. You go.
I mean, wow. That's
Yes,
amazing.
it definitely is.
Usually, like, definitely doable. When you love what you're learning, you don't feel, it
It's
doesn't
true.
feel like a chore at all.
No.
And actually, I failed to mention this, but again, I was an engineer. I had maybe one writing course in my entire life, and then I entered into a program that was heavy on writing. But I
Yes, it is.
loved it so much that this program
Yes.
turned me into a writer. It was an
Yes,
amazing time. Okay.
for sure.
So this is my info. Go ahead and jot it down. You can always email me, call me. Now we do have our next start is coming up, which is August 21, but there is still about 2 weeks left to apply. So if you are still interested, please go ahead and email me. I'm happy to give you the code to waive the application fee, as well as a potential admission scholarship, and we can discuss that once you email me for the code. Okay, if there are any other questions here, I'm here for like just maybe a few more minutes. But Susie, any final thoughts? Are you good?
No, I'm happy for all of you that you're pursuing this and really discern it because it's a great education. You'll definitely
Absolutely.
grow by this education.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
For any of those students, go again, email me. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And again, I'll stay here for just maybe a few more minutes. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great evening.